Hi everyone, it's Allie and I'm here to do the second video in my series about animals in the tarot deck. I'm pretty excited about it. And so I'm going to be talking today about the cat in the Queen of Wands card. Now I know that there are lots of animals in the cat family in the tarot deck, right? Lions, lots of lions basically. But today I just want to talk about the one instance of the domestic cat in the Queen of Wands because I love it. I find it very interesting and I have lots of thoughts. And this video is going to be a bit different because I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about cats in general and the black cat specifically historically before I get into the card, just because I sort of went down a deep dive about it. And so now you get the benefit of that. I'll put a timestamp in the description, so if you just want to skip ahead to me talking about the black cat in the Queen of Wands, that's totally fine. But I do think there's relevance to the historic role of the black cat and then in the Queen of Wands card. I should say right off the bat that this is as someone who's interested in animals, this is my interpretation of the role of the cat in this card. This is based on my prior knowledge, my own ideas. I didn't do a lot of tarot specific research on this. I wore my little black cat necklace. Can you see? It's just like the cat eyes and the ears sticking up like it's peeking over a counter or something. So if this doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. And if you've done a bunch of other tarot research and you have some other ideas, also totally fine. Completely get that. This is just sort of me going with my gut on this one. But I do want to talk about cat history because I do think it's a really interesting choice to have the black cat on the Queen of Wands card and to have it be the only black cat in the entire deck. So in a nutshell, what we know about cats is that in ancient Egypt, they were revered, right? Like gods, holy animals. As a matter of fact, you could be executed if you had been found to have killed a cat of any color. So they were incredibly valued. And then things start to shift with the Crusades and the spread of Christianity, right? A lot of pagan symbols of worship get pushed to the side when countries are conquered, and so that they can, celebrate Christian traditions instead. But even that, I mean, there's nothing specific about cats in Christianity until Pope Gregory the Ninth, and I think this is around the 13th century. He was the one in the Christian church who made a specific statement that cats were actually the devil incarnate. So not just agents of the devil, but like they were the devil walking on earth. So this is terrible for black cats because in order for people to demonstrate their faith and fealty to the church, they would kill them and often kill them in public festivals and things like that to demonstrate that they were rooting Satan out from the world. So this is horrible. And I've actually read that in parts of Europe, cats in general, the population went way down, domesticated cats, but black cats in particular were almost extinct, which is crazy because having dark fur is actually a much more dominant genetic trait. There's way more of them, which is going to come into something else I'm going to talk about later. So not good for our buddies, the black cats. So if that's in the 13th century, right, we have in the 16th and 17th century, of course, we have the witch trials. And that feeling of unease around black cats just continues to persist and persist and persist, and then is eventually linked specifically with witchcraft. It's well documented that for some people who are tried for witchcraft, just owning a black cat was evidence enough to convict them of that crime. And black cats were killed as witches themselves. And Salem 2 dogs were killed as well for witchcraft. So there's a whole other sort of animal thing there. But black cats have this really negative stigma to them. Now, I have seen the argument that black cats are just considered to be a harbinger of a change of luck, be it good or bad. But being a North American, right, who like my ancestry is Scottish and British, right? Like just I can't find any real historical evidence where people were like, "Oh, hooray, a black cat. How lucky," given that particular heritage. Like I just can't find it. The only association I've ever known is that it's bad luck if a black cat crosses your path. And of course, you know, black cats, as Halloween became more and more popular, certainly through the 50s, post World War II, and then they took a huge leap forward in the 70s, like Halloween things, and that black cat iconography, which is linked with that traditional witch iconography, becomes super, super popular. So maybe it's a harbinger of a change of fortune. I couldn't find anything about that, really. It's just sort of that idea of bad luck for black cats. My tabby cat is playing with something down there. So, does this still hold true? Do people still have this superstition about black cats? Maybe. Now, I did volunteer in my local animal shelter before COVID and all this nightmare. I'm looking forward to getting back to it someday. And there's some persistent sort of urban legends about black cats being unlucky and whether or not they're likely to be adopted. There was a study, I think it was out of University of Colorado, maybe in 2014, that did say that black cats and black dogs, actually all of the stuff I'm going to talk about now applies to both cats and dogs, were less likely to be adopted from shelters and were euthanized at a higher rate because they had not been adopted. And I think there is probably some truth to this, but not necessarily because of the luck thing. Are there some people in the world who take that superstition very seriously? Sure, probably. But I don't think it's enough to make that kind of statistical change. And as a matter of fact, a vet did this huge study about shelters in the States, I think in 2017, and said, okay, well, yes, there are more, at the end of each week, there are more black animals left in the shelters, but there is also a higher level of intake. And genetically speaking, animals are more likely to have dark fur than light fur. And so there were those kinds of reasons as well. In my volunteering, I did notice more black animals left over, but I do think there's some other potential reasons as well. A principal one being that animals are actually really hard to photograph any animal and have them not look like an idiot. Like sometimes I get really cute pictures of my animals, but sometimes they just look like morons. And that's, I'm sure that they don't look like morons. They're adorable. So that's my photography failing. And of course, many of the people taking photos for Humane Society websites are volunteers just with their phones in crappy lighting. Often those shelters don't have great lighting. And animals that don't have that color contrast on their fur, right? Like brown and white or orange and brown or something bright. It can be harder to distinguish their cute features. And they just sort of look like a bit of a blob with eyes. And so people may be pre-selecting animals that they want to see when they get to the shelter, and they sort of skip over the ones where it's harder to distinguish their cute features until you're there in person. I do believe that. There's also this urban legend about that saying that shelters shouldn't allow black cats to be adopted near Halloween because they'll be tortured. And I think this is BS. I think this is a holdover from the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, which just didn't exist. It was just a moral panic that, I mean, people went to prison, and there's some great podcasts and stuff about the satanic panic and how it just doesn't exist. But there's just no evidence to support that. No one's ever done it. But people still get all nervous about adopting out these animals at Halloween. My local shelter actually does a drive at Halloween saying this is the time to adopt a black cat or an orange cat or a black dog. Now, I will say, I do think there might be a smidge of truth to the idea that, well, maybe you want to be careful about adopting out those animals at Halloween because maybe people just want them as a fun, kitschy prop, right? But I don't think so. That's a lot of commitment for a prop. And in any case, by the time you get through the interview process that's required in order to adopt such an animal, for sure they'd be able to suss out whether or not you are ready to take care of that animal. So I think there's maybe that kind of danger, because I know that it has happened with rabbits and chicks at Easter. That people think it'll be super cute, and then they're like, oh God, but wait 15 years for rabbits of this, and they don't want it. But I don't know. I think it's crap. So whether or not people still feel truly that those animals are unlucky, I know a ton of people with black cats. Black cats are the best, man. They're affectionate and hilarious and awesome. So with that all said, okay, so I got to remember where this is so that I can put a timestamp in. I find it fascinating that given that, although there's this idea that maybe it's good luck, maybe it's bad luck, I think the bad luck rumor about black cats is certainly predominant at the time that Pamela Coleman Smith is making the artwork for the Smith-Waite Tarot deck. So 1909 is when it's first published. I'm not sure how long in advance she worked on the 78 pieces of art before it was published. But I find this a really deliberate and interesting choice. And I pulled a couple others here. We have the Queen of Wands from the Lightseers Tarot. Look at it all nestled up there. Oh, black cat. Here we have Super Lunaris Tarot. Cat just chilling. Bohemian Gothic. So the darker deck too. I'm just going to move my light a little bit for this. Can you see him off beside the lady's red dress there? So my lighting is crap because it's been storming all day here and there's almost no natural light. And then, oh, I love the Tarot of Trees one. Look at him nestled up in that branch. Eyes closed, so happy. So why that symbol for this card? And so here are my ideas about it. That given the fact that probably there's a negative connotation with black cats at this time, and the black cat is potentially, maybe has crossed part of the Queen of Wands path and is sitting right in front of her. But to me, the Queen of Wands has just risen above it. It's like, yeah, you can take your dumb superstition. I am not having it. I mean, this is such a power pose, the Queen of Wands here. I think just we've got the wand that is flowering, and we know the wands is like fiery passion, right? There's a real sense of confidence here. Oops. Every time. Like she's sitting with her legs spread, like she's taking up space on the throne, which I love. And even her throne, like it's so tall at the back that it exceeds the card itself, like the drawing itself, it continues up, which is not the case with every single court card. There are a few. She's not the only one. I can't now remember who else. King of Wands, maybe. I'd have to go back and look. And she's holding the wand, which is like sort of like is strong and is used as a weapon in many of the cards, but then also a sunflower, which is beautiful and delicate. Like there's a lot of sort of blend here of strength and confidence, but it's also tender. And when I think about a black cat coming to choose and sit at a person's feet, like you can't make a cat do anything, right? Those cat owners who are watching this channel are like, oh God, you cannot make a cat do anything. I thought about trying to get my black cat to come in for this video. As you know, she's bombed almost all of my videos so far that I've made on this channel. Is she anywhere to be found now? No, I didn't even try, because if I tried to put her on this desk, she'd be like, screw you, and be gone. So it takes a certain kind of quiet confidence, a certain knowledge that a cat will come to you and sit, and then it will. I find it really fascinating. You know, the Queen of Wands is also not making eye contact out of the card. And if you have friends who don't like cats or who are allergic to cats, you know your cat will be all over them because they'll try to ignore the cat and not look right at it. And then the cat's like, dude, I'm right here. Look at me, look at me, look at me, pay attention, love me. Whereas someone else who tries to smother them, right, to show that they love the cat is like, screw you, I am gone. So it's this sense of like quiet, confident strength where she doesn't give a crap about this rumor, right? She appreciates the cat for what it is. She is allowed to be in his presence. It is allowed to be in her presence. And they're both just sort of calmly, meditatively sitting there. I think you could. Now, here we're getting into a bit of ridiculous stuff here. I don't know. But I think you could make an argument for sort of the dual sexuality of it, right? So another word for cat is often associated with female parts, and it was long before Pixie started drawing, right? So that was well established as a euphemism for female genitalia. We have the very phallic symbol of the wand, right? And again, this sort of masculine pose, but from the Queen of Wands. I think you can potentially make that argument that there's sort of a sexual element to the inclusion of this as well. Wands are fiery, wands are passion, wands are often about sexuality as well. So, maybe. But I do find it a really interesting exercise to look at the Queen of Wands and to look at sort of the history of this maligned little animal. Well, first of all, maybe she's a witch, right? Maybe that sort of like powerful witch energy is what we're to take from this, the fact that she's the only one with a black cat sitting by her feet. So there's maybe that. There's also, potentially the idea that she has this sort of dominion over this animal that is extremely difficult to control and extremely single-minded, but it is willing to listen to her, right? Because she has mastered herself and is powerful in her own right. So if you draw the Queen of Wands, I think it's interesting. And if you are the kind of person, or if it's the kind of reading where you look at this and think, okay, this court card is a person. Sometimes I get that from my readings. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's just more of an energy. But like the kind of person's energy, male or female, or in any way gender identifying, that can draw that energy to them is really interesting to think about in your particular tarot reading. Who is that? Who is able to have that relationship with an animal that can be extremely elusive and very aloof and not interested? And is it someone who's bucking the traditional norms, right? Oh, you say this is unlucky? Not to me, right? This is something that that I hold to me as something valuable, whereas other people would think, no, someone who's not going to get wrapped up in superstition, someone who is fiery and passionate, but is going to go their own way and not like follow the hype of other people or be too beholden to what other people think. Other people who might say to them, oh, that's unlucky. Ooh, I wouldn't want that. I just love it. I just love that that little black cat is there. And I think it suits the Queen of Wands perfectly in her firm, confident stance in her throne and just building her own way with total confidence. So that's what I think about the black cat in the Smith-Waite tarot deck. What do you think? Let me know if you have other interpretations of the black cat, and you'll be seeing see again, she didn't show up. One video she doesn't show up for. But I hope you have a great day, and I'll be back with another reading on Sunday, and then another next week, I think, another episode in my What I Have Learned From. I'm working on that video now. Have a great day.